What's up, wellness junkies? It's the girl with the business brain and yoga body, Sabrina Zealous, welcoming you to Yoga Socialite. This is the place where asana meets aesthetic, so we're here for the good vibes, the cute fits, and the real talk. Let's get into it. Today's episode. I'm definitely having my Mean Girls moment where I'm mixing two words like cool and great and gruel. But we're going to make this episode so fetch. Today's episode is called Namaste And No Thanks, how we're going to set boundaries in the yoga community. Now, I am very proud of myself because I have found my iPad. My iPad has been MIA for like 3 years. It's literally been sitting in a drawer. It's plugged in right now because it's got like 6% battery. And this is one of the good iPads that you can like draw on and stuff. And I always forget I have it. And then last week I was sitting up here with like my giant laptop, balancing it on one leg while also sipping some hot cocoa. It was the first episode back. We had to keep it real, and that's where we were at that week. But this week, I've got my iPad. I'm being classy. I really should have had the pen or something with it, so I seemed like official, but I don't. But, you know, that's where we're at today. So today we're talking about something that doesn't usually come up in your yoga classes or while you're trying to master a headstand or while you're trying to remember to breathe in Warrior Two, and that is setting boundaries in the yoga community, which can be difficult because the yoga community is such a place of kumbaya and where I've met pretty much all my besties. And I know that creating boundaries can seem kind of like, I don't know, an oxymoron in the yoga community because they're all about sharing and non-attachment and being with each other. And sometimes you got to set those boundaries. And we're going to talk about this not only in relation to yoga, but of course, boundaries in your regular life. I just like to give some yoga examples because this is Yoga Socialite. So let's be honest, just because someone can chant Om or offer you the best essential oil you've ever smelled in your life, that does not automatically get them a free pass to your energy field. And that goes for the same for friends, families, and associates. And it's necessary to set this in the studio as well as, like I mentioned, your personal life. You all, I just got a little like Pivo, but it's like the knockoff Pivo. Let's see how it's gonna trace my face if it's following me. It's following me pretty good. I wanted to give y'all a little movement in the broadcast, and this is working so far so good. I had the OG Pivo pod, which is like $100. It's worth it. I'm not gonna lie. I used it for all of my videos for my online platform, and I was running my online platform, and it would follow you, and it was so cool to like see yourself movement and then the camera moving with you. It was like having a free cameraman. And then I dropped it one day, and I was so sad and so angry because there was no coming back from that. Like, it was over. So I got the Amazon version of a Pivo pod, and I think it's super legit. It's moving. It's doing its thing. Okay. So let's start with this. Let me first say, yoga community, do not come for me. Boundaries are good. And I think in the yoga world, we are open to therapy. We're open to accepting others in a greater way than some other communities. And I can say, first off, the yoga community has been my biggest supporters in moving to California. Moving to California, not having any friends, not having any family here, my yoga studios at YogaWorks, and now moving over here to Coachella Yoga. This is where I have met my vibe, my tribe, my peeps, and I'm so appreciative of that. But you also have to remind yourself to set boundaries because there is so much connection and so much community that sometimes we can forget to set boundaries in this community. So whether we're talking about setting a boundary for yourself in the classroom, like the teacher's telling you to do an extra rep and you know in your body you just do not have it, or holding that Warrior Two with your arms out and you've already done arms like twice today and now you need to bring your hands to your heart, there are areas in the yoga community that we need to set boundaries. And even oversharing in the community or becoming someone's therapist. We are not therapists unless you are a licensed therapist. I'm personally not. There are places in our yoga community that we have to set boundaries, and this can reflect into the outside world. So, the first story I want to get into is to know when to take a child's pose, bro. Are y'all ready for story time? This is a fun one. Let me tell you about me being in Sean's class. If you were at YogaWorks South Bay circa 2015 to like up into the pandemic, like 2020, you know what a Sean's class means. For those of you who were not there, it was quite a place to be. I would say it was the yoga version of Studio 54. I'm just kidding. But Sean's class was the place to be. It was that popular class. It was the class that you needed to make sure you got there early, because if you did not get there early, then you're SOL. Sorry, you're not getting your spot. People had their spots. They would move your mat if you were in their spot. I mean, it was the place. It was full of crop tops and handstands and sweat and water bottles, and everyone had a Manduka mat. It was the place to be. So I'm taking Sean Gray's class. Shout out to Sean Gray. He's an amazing yoga instructor. Find him on YouTube. I think he's taking a social media sabbatical, but he is on YouTube. So find him on YouTube. Amazing instructor. I was in Sean's class once, and I was in the yoga zone. Okay, I'm like flowing so steady. The breath, each inhale and exhale is a movement. I'm getting it. I'm probably in like an aloe onesie, because you know I love a onesie, and I'm killing it. Okay, and no, not in yoga are you supposed to be thinking you're killing it, but it was one of those days where like the mind, the body, the breath were all flowing. It was all copacetic. And I'm pretty sure at this time I was going through a big breakup, and that class was like I'm coming back into myself, right? Until the very end, when we do inversion practices, and I could feel in my body like I had left it all on the mat, all right? I left it all on the mat, including the sweat. I don't really sweat, I kind of just glisten, but I left it all on the mat. And we were going up into inversion practice, and my body was saying like, maybe just like one little handstand at the wall, girl. Like, you know, there's no need for you to be extra. You're going through a lot emotionally, physically. You just left it all on the mat. Pat yourself on the back, take a child's pose, okay? And what did I do? I went up into my headstand, a handstand actually. I'm not a big headstand person because I've got some neck and shoulder things, but I went up to my handstand at the wall. And the first one was like, all the sparkles, all the glitter, it was fabulous. I come down, I'm like, oh, yes, girl. The ego got a little ahead of myself. Ego got a little more showtime than my yoga-ness. And I go up for round 2, because you could go up a couple times. Now, if you've ever taken a yoga teacher training, a good yoga teacher training will teach you that after a handstand or a headstand or any type of inversion, you find a child's pose to relax the body so you don't get a little dizzy and get a head rush and all the blood's rushing to your head. Like, hello. But even though I had been teaching for a few years by then, I decided to go up for round 2 without resting. And that is when I took a little tumble onto the girl next to me. Now, she was okay. Before we get too worried about her, she was just fine. She's okay. I did give her a little extra time with a guy in class that she was interested in, because he was very concerned if she was okay, and she played that up for a little bit. It happened. She was okay. But if I had just listened to myself, I would not have taken a tumble on the person next to me. Did I cartwheel out? Yes. Did I cartwheel out and then onto her? Yes. But this is where boundaries are set. I didn't have to push myself that far. This wasn't even the teacher pushing me this far. The teacher says, this is your practice. Some people were just doing legs up the wall. Here I go, being overzealous, pun intended, and I didn't set a boundary with myself. And from that day on, I have set the boundary to myself. Doesn't matter what is going on in my practice, what the instructor is instructing. Of course, be mindful and be respectful of your instructors. Don't just be like going full off flow to like what they're doing. That's kind of disrespectful. We've also had that person that's like not doing anything the instructor says and everyone's like, wait, what's going on? Be mindful of that. However, also adjust your practice as you need to. Add a prop when you need to. Take a child's pose as you need to. From that day forward, I will be in the front of the class. I will be doing what the instructor is teaching me or instructing me to do, but I also know when to take a child's pose. That's vital. You have to know when to take a child's pose, when to pause. Set that boundary with yourself. And not just in the classroom, know when you need a break. Even at work. What if you're at work and you're pushing yourself and you're like, I'm gonna get these last 5 emails done, but your brain is done. And then you try to get those last 5 emails and you make a mistake in your email or forget the attachment or whatever it might be. And it's because you didn't give yourself a moment to pause, to breathe. That is setting a boundary with yourself. So that's our first little namaste and just say no. Setting that boundary with yourself. So that was point number 1. 3 ways to set healthy boundaries. Don't be afraid to take a child's pose. Don't be afraid to rest. That's really what it is. But I like saying that. I will be in the front, like I said, I'll be in the front of someone's class. Just everyone knows I'm a yoga teacher, that I've been teaching for like a decade, that I'm running the studio, and I will still take a child's pose. I'm not embarrassed of it. I hold myself accountable. I have one body and many practices, and I'm gonna hold myself accountable. Point number 2 is to create energy boundaries. And this is a big one for the yoga community because we are so energetically connected to each other, and a lot of us are empathic and we're emotional sponges. And you may notice like after a class, someone wants to come and like gossip with you or tell you something that like maybe you don't need to experience in that moment, or someone wants to give you their life story or like energy dump on you or complain about something, which kind of relates to what we were talking about last week. And you have to be emotionally responsible for yourself. And you can take on, if you feel the need and you feel led to take on and listen to their situation, of course you can. But you can also say, I'm so glad you're comfortable sharing with me. I just don't have the space to hold for this. Or I need a moment to recharge, or I need a moment to reflect after my practice. I mean, it's compassionate, it's clear, you're acknowledging that you want to hear what they have to say, you're not dismissive, but you just can't take on their emotional weight. And I think we get this a lot as teachers. You know, after classes, we always say, come and talk to us if you have any questions. And I don't get it as much as I did in LA. I will say this, no offense to my LA friends. But after class, sometimes people come to you and they tell you stuff that like, I should not be knowing. I should not be knowing, not even just to hold space, just things that I should not be a part of. And I think that it's important to create those energy boundaries. Whether it's in the yoga classroom or even with your family or friends. I've been guilty of this, and my sister called me out on this once. I was going through a really difficult time when I first moved to California, and I didn't have any family here. I was still making friends, and I would dump on my mom. I would energetically just dump on my mom. And my sister happened to be in the car one time. I was doing this energy dump on my mom, and my sister was like, dude, shut up. And this is the first time my oldest sister and me have ever got into it. And it wasn't even she got into it. She just kind of put me in my place. Thanks, sissy. She was like, shut your mouth. Don't speak to our mother this way. Don't dump your crap on her, because all what you're talking about has nothing to do with her, and you're just emotionally dumping on her, which is causing her to be exhausted. And she's your mother. She can hold space to an extent, but no, the way what you're doing it and the way you're coming about it is no bueno. And I'm so glad my sister called me out on that, because if she hadn't, I would have continued to do that. And now I'm more aware, and I know when that sense of like overwhelm is coming at me, and I know to get quiet and to reflect within myself and journal about it or find other avenues, go for a walk. Walking helps me a lot with stuff like that. You need to make sure to create energy boundaries for yourself, as well as you not being the person dumping your energy on others. I probably should have mentioned at the top of the pod that I have not had a matcha latte today. If you don't know what matcha is, it is green tea in a powder form that you can make into a latte, which I love to do and I have on the daily. However, I'm craving a cappuccino, a good Italian cappuccino, or maybe a Spanish latte, or, a Havana cappuccino, which is basically a Spanish latte. Before we go into a full barista conversation, I am phrasing this because if I go off a little tangent, it's because I have not had any caffeine today. So bear with me and my brain, okay? Our last but not least little segment of our Namaste and Just Say No. Namaste and No Thanks. I don't know why I keep that Just Say No campaign was so fabulous that it is now stalking me into adulthood to where I can't just say Namaste and No Thanks. I have to say Just Say No. Way to do branding. Okay. Number 3 on our Namaste and No Thanks for setting boundaries. The third topic we want to address is not feeling obligated to fix everyone. That goes in a few different ways. So as yoga practitioners or teachers, it's easy to fall into the role of healer or fixer. And sometimes people put us on that pedestal of that. Don't let yourself go down a pedestal because you will fall down. Someone might think that because you're their go-to for yoga, that you're basically their therapist, and I've already talked about this before, their life coach or emotional crutch. I've been guilty of this myself with people. And so while we love supporting others, especially in our communities, whether that's yoga community, friends, family, loved ones, etc., you also need to set a boundary of I'm here to hold space, but not to solve everything. Because sometimes the universe, God, whoever you would like to refer that to, is telling that person that they're experiencing this for a reason. Sometimes you have to go through really difficult times by yourself so that you can come out on top, or to be a testimony for someone else that is going to go through that in the future. Sometimes people have to go through experiences in times of difficulty for them to learn and evolve on their own, being their own hero, not you coming in being Captain Seva. I edited that part out, but if you know, you know. Okay. And this also goes into the classroom. It's not up to you to always fix everyone in the classroom either. You don't need to give hands-on adjustments to every single person. You need to, one, make sure that people are comfortable with that, maybe phrase that in the class that you're going to teach. I personally don't do hands-on adjustments unless I really know the person and I know that they want hands-on adjustments. That's one thing I really like about Bikram yoga, hot yoga. There is not hands-on adjustments. They're not like physically going over there doing things. They are actually telling you verbally, and I've only taken a few Bikram classes, but we have hot yoga at my studio. They correct you verbally. Their cueing is so on point that they can correct you verbally. And then you adjust your body to it. And I really like that. And that's something my lineage from YogaWorks taught me as well, is like your cueing could be so on point that you could have your hands behind your back that you cannot be displaying, and people know what to do because they are verbally listening to your cues. And as teachers, we need to remember that. And as practitioners, you can say no to a hands-on adjustment. I know we went from emotionally fixing people, now we're talking about physically fixing people, because I think people get uncomfortable with this. It's like when someone walks behind you and puts their hand on your lower back. I've had students do that to me. Do not touch. And I go, no, no, no. Do not touch. I have done that. I've had students or even teachers. I've had teachers before, like, only adjust me in down dog, a male teacher at that. Only adjusted me in down dog. Everyone else is getting adjusted in down dog, just me getting adjusted in down dog. And I pulled him aside. I said, hey, don't adjust me in down dog again. No thanks. Now, I'm the kind of person that speaks my mind, and it can be hard as a practitioner to like say something like that to a teacher, especially when you have a lot of reverence for them. But you have to have a lot of reverence for yourself as well. And you have to know if something is making you uncomfortable to address it. And I think it's important to know that not everything in your practice has to be fixed. I know some people love hands-on adjustments. I actually love hands-on adjustments from the right teacher. However, also it's just as important to sit and listen and be able to adjust yourself based off what the teacher's saying. I'm doing a little down dog adjustment while I'm filming this, because that's what I was thinking of when I was thinking of adjustments. Now, the overarching thing of our Namaste and No Thanks is boundaries need to be set for yourself, setting boundaries for yourself, knowing when to tell yourself, hey, let's chill, let's pause. You can use those same boundaries for your friends and family. Maybe you don't want to go out that night. Maybe you don't want to be adjusted in your yoga practice. You can set those boundaries energetically, not taking on more stuff energetically than you can. And I want to encourage you to say namaste and no thanks. Use it in a sentence today, unless it's for me. Don't tell me no thanks. I'm just kidding. I am also available for you to say namaste and no thanks if there's something that I was doing that was crossing a boundary with you. But no, boundaries are just as much as part of our yoga practice as the breath, as moving, as finding stillness. You know, there is a way to show love and respect for yourself and the people around you in a way that makes you comfortable. So wellness junkies, let's normalize saying namaste and no thanks. Let's not make people feel guilty for when they have to give us a namaste and no thanks. And don't forget to protect your peace. Stay grounded and keep showing up as your very best self. That is today's episode. Short, sweet, and to the point. You know how I like to do it. If you are watching this on YouTube, please hit like and subscribe. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts from, please give it a follow. And don't wait until next week's episode to stay connected with me. You can find me on social media at Yoga Socialite. I am always on the gram because isn't TikTok going to get banned in like 5 minutes? So you can find me on Instagram and we can connect there. Thank you so much for watching and have a beautiful rest of your day. Namaste.